Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Can you hear me in the back?
Yes.
I was on my bike. I live in Diemen. I've been told that Robin is my new neighbor because Robin just lives one street, 1 block away from me. But I was on the bike, and as we Dutch people, we do all kind of other things on the bike. I was calling my mother, and I told my mother that I was going to do a presentation here tonight. And she said, "Are people going to show up?" I said, "Mom, I don't know, but maybe some people are coming." She said, "Wow, are they going to listen to you?" I said, "Well, I don't know, but maybe." She said, "If they do, please make a picture for me." So I promised her to make a selfie and to put you on it. So if you don't want to be on the selfie, then please let me know. But otherwise, I'll make a selfie for just for my mother. So if you can just wave and say hi. Thank you. So, Henk Jansen, but only half Dutch. My mother, Irish woman, fell in love with my father, beautiful Dutch guy, Catholic Irish woman, falling in love with a Protestant Dutch guy. That wasn't in this age, wasn't always a great thing. But my mother came here as an international, as an expat, and she was just interviewed by Dutch News, being the oldest expat in Amsterdam, 83 years age. I think it was somewhere in the late 90s that I was helping somebody, and she was from Venezuela, and she came to me and she was renting, and it was guilders at that time, Robin, but it was an equivalent of 1,200 guilders a month that she was paying in rent. And she came to me and she asked, "Henk, can I buy a house and can I get a mortgage?" So I collected all her documents, her passport, her residence permit. She had at that time the 35% ruling. What is the 30% ruling nowadays? And I gathered all these documents and I went to the bank and I presented her situation. She was a marketeer. She worked at a sports company in Almere. And I presented her situation and I said, "Listen, this is the situation. Do you want to give her the mortgage?" So the guy from the bank, he looked at it and he investigated it. And then he said, no, I'm not going to give her the mortgage. And I said, "Why not?" She said, "Yeah, maybe she can go back to Venezuela tomorrow." I said, "Wow, you guys gave me a mortgage yesterday and I know for sure I can go to Venezuela tomorrow." "Yeah, but I'm half Dutch." "Well, I have a Dutch passport." So I think that was what triggered me to start Expat Mortgages in the late 90s. We started Expat Mortgages actually in 2007, and what we do is we help people, international people, buying a house. When they're in need of a mortgage, we help you to get a mortgage. Like I said, there weren't solutions for people from outside the EU these days. Nowadays, we have solutions for everybody. Whether you're Dutch or European, whether you're from outside the EU, whether you're here on a temporary residence permit or on an indefinite residence permit, we have a solution. That's me, that's long enough. If you want to buy a house, and if you're in need of the mortgage, there's actually three things that are important for you. The most important thing is, am I eligible for a mortgage? Does a bank want to have me as their client? Obviously you would say, "Yes, I'm young and I have a good job and a good company," but the bank rephrases the question and the bank says, "We look at your nationality, we look at your residency, and we also look at your credit history here in the Netherlands." And in the Netherlands, we do things a little bit different than in other countries. So if you're from the States or if you're from the UK, you build credit history over time. Don't you, Rob? You build credit history over time. Not here. Here you were born with a great credit history, and the only thing you can do is you can lose it. If you have what we call a BKR registration, Bureau Krediet Registratie, if you have such a registration, if you have an A registration in BKR, it's difficult to get a mortgage, because an A registration means that you've defaulted on a loan in the past, and if you have such a registration, it's difficult to get a mortgage. So if you never took out a loan in the Netherlands, or you did take out a loan but you always paid in time, you know you have a clean sheet, you know you're eligible for a mortgage. If you are from Belgium, Italy, Germany or Austria, if you're from one of these four countries, they also check your home country. So they also check Schufa if you're German or Austrian. They check BKR if you're Belgian, or they check CRIF if you're Italian. So that's the thing that they'll do. 85% of all mortgages that are denied for that reason: bad credit history. So you can rephrase it, you can say, if you don't have any credit history, or you have a good credit history, 85% more chance to get a mortgage. That's number one. The second thing that is important is the to-be mortgaged property. In the Netherlands, you can borrow 100% of the value. I'll repeat that. In the Netherlands, you can borrow 100% of the value. I see my colleagues in the back looking a little bit sad because you used to be able to borrow 110% or 112%. Nowadays you can only, according to Dutch standards, only borrow 100%. In most countries of the world you can only borrow 60 or 70%, so they think that the Dutch system is quite okay. So the only thing that you have to bring to the table is the closing cost, the cost to buy a house. The average cost to buy a house, transfer tax, stamp duty 2%, notarial fees to register the house and the mortgage in your name, mortgage-related fees, the fees for an estate agent, the fees for a valuation, the fee for a structural survey, and maybe an interpreter. These costs are round about 5% on top of the purchase. So if a question that you would have brought to this evening tonight was, do we have to bring some cash to the table? Do we have to bring some money ourselves? The answer is 5%. It's actually even a little bit better. If you find a nice Dutch house, but you don't like the color of the kitchen, maybe they have a pink kitchen, whoever thinks of a pink kitchen or pink shoes. If you ever buy something like that and you want to borrow some extra money for refurbishments, you can include them into the mortgage. So you can borrow extra money for a kitchen or a bathroom or a new floor or a central heating system. So you can get 100% of the value plus the increased value after refurbishments. Milan is the estate agent. She's going to tell you more about the property market at the moment. But in the Netherlands, if you found a house and you have an estate agent help you find a house, afterwards they will send an evaluator to make an appraisal, to make a valuation report. Is this house really worth the amount that you're paying for it? And even given the market circumstances at the moment, 98% of the valuations turn out to be exactly equal to the purchase price. So normally the only amount that you have to bring is this 5%. The third thing which is important, I think I missed one, is your financial assessment. The bank wants to know, do you have debts? Do you have an income? What kind of income do you have? Do you have maybe what used to be the 35% ruling? What is the 30% ruling nowadays? What kind of contract do you have? Are you maybe self-employed? Based on your financial situation, they will determine your budget. And your budget is approximately 4.5 to 5 times your gross annual income. In the Netherlands, mortgage is based on gross income. And why gross? Because interest is tax deductible. So you can borrow around about 4.5 to 5 times your income, and you can borrow 100% of the value of the property. Those are important things to remember. So 3 things to see whether you're eligible to get a mortgage. You, your credit history, and your nationality. We have solutions for everybody these days. The to-be mortgage property, maximum 100% loan to value, and your financial situation, 4.5 to 5 times your gross annual income. Let's see what the presentation is. Our company, Expat Mortgages, I brought a few colleagues. They're here, they have these badges on. They would love to wave to you here. They're very nice. So later on, if you have a question, you can ask one of my colleagues there. Our company, Expat Mortgages, we're an independent mortgage brokerage company. So we work with all the main banks. We work with ABN AMRO, we work with Rabo, we work with ING. But we also work with banks that might not be that familiar to you. Option, Westland, Utrecht, woonfondshypotheken. So we're an independent broker. You have to pay us a fee to get our help, but then you don't have to pay the bank the fee. So you save yourself some costs for the bank, but you have to pay us a fee to get our help, and then we help you to get the best possible mortgage, independent of the bank. Robin was telling you about 1,200 euros in rent, and if you look at a house and you look, for example, on Funda and you see a house and the house is, for example, 300,000 euros, you want to understand, is it 300,000 euros? It's going to cost me 500 euros per month, or it's going to cost me 1,500 euros per month. Well, actually, you are in charge of your monthly cost. You have five things that you can influence that will influence your monthly cost. The most important thing is the amount that you want to borrow. Obviously, the more you want to borrow, the more you have to pay. Wow, you didn't need to come over here tonight to hear me then say that, but maybe you can influence whether you're going to look for a house for 300,000 or for 200,000. Maybe you can influence whether you want to borrow some extra money for refurbishments or not. And maybe you can influence whether you put some more cash down than the required 5% to reduce the amount of mortgage. So the more you borrow, the more you pay. That's number one. The second most important thing, they switched my slides, doesn't matter. The second most important thing is the term of the mortgage. In the Netherlands, we repay our house in 30 years. When I hear myself saying, I know this used to be not true. We used to not repay our house at all. We borrowed money, we only paid interest, and we waited for the house to grow in value. Then we sold it, we took the profit, we put it in our pocket, and we took a new mortgage for the new house, and it worked perfectly. It worked perfectly until 2008. And in 2008 the house was stabilized, and in 2009 prices went down, and then we had a lot of people who had more mortgage than value. We call these houses underwater. Typical Dutch, underwater, there was more mortgage than value. And then somebody said that the government, maybe it wasn't such a smart idea that we gave all these people interest-only mortgages, non-repayment mortgages, because in the meantime the value went down from 100 to 80 and the mortgage was still 110 at that time. So a lot of people wanted to sell their house but couldn't because there was no equity in it. Negative equity. That's maybe why it took the Dutch market a little bit longer than other European countries to gain confidence after the crisis. Nowadays, they said, the Dutch government says, if you want to gain from the tax deduction of interest, I'm not going to tell you all about tax deduction, all about the beautiful things in the Dutch system. If you want to gain from that system, you have to repay your house in a maximum period of 30 years. In Robin's example, he said, what if I pay it off in 28 years? What if you pay it off? The shorter the term, the higher your monthly payment, but also the more equity you build in your mortgage. So that's the term of the mortgage. Like I said, we used to have interest-only, non-repayment mortgages. We used to have endowments or special endowments. We called them savings or investment mortgages. Nowadays we have two systems: capital, repayment, mortgage only. We have annuity with a fixed amount per month, and we have linear or straight line, where you start high and slowly you go down. When you sit with one of your consultants, either from us or from the bank or from a different brokerage, look at the different options. Dutch people, we often choose 50-50 because we don't know what to choose. Interest rates. I do this profession for almost 30 years, and the last few years that I do this presentation, I've always told you this is the best time to buy a house because rates have never been as low as they are today. Well, this is the best time to buy a house because rates are never as low as they are today. So the rates are lower than they've been ever in history. You can get a 10-year fixed rate. You can get a 10-year fixed rate for under 2% at the moment, depending on your loan to value. And you can also take a floating rate or a variable rate or a tracker, like they call them in the UK, where you have a floating rate, which is interesting, but also risky. And in the Netherlands, you can also fix your interest rate for 30 years and have maximum security. So the longer you fix it for, often the more you pay. But that's a choice that you can make. You can choose for a 5 or a 10-year fixed period, depending on your personal situation. And last but not least is insurance. Banks are always afraid that they will lose money. Banks warn you, what if you get disabled, what if you get unemployed, what if you die, who will pay for this expensive mortgage? But actually they want to protect their own situation. What if something horrible happens to you and you can't repay your mortgage? So they warn you for all kind of risks, and sometimes insurance is mandatory. Sometimes it's mandatory to take a term life insurance. If it's mandatory, we're going to take it in consideration, and we're going to add it to your gross or your net cost. So if I add these 5 things up, it's the amount of mortgage, the term of the mortgage, the kind of mortgage, the interest rate and the fixed period, and the insurance. And if we add these 5 things together, then we know what you will be paying per month gross. And then Arnold comes, he does his trick, and he takes off the tax advantage, and gross minus tax advantage means net. And I was talking to Robin and I said, listen, 10,000 euros of mortgage is somewhere between 30 and 35 net a month. 100,000 euros mortgage is somewhere between 300 and 350 euros net a month. 300,000 euros mortgage, house in Amsterdam or a house just outside in Amsterdam. In Diemen, can we get something for 300,000 in Diemen at the moment, Robin? Some places. So 300,000 euros will be somewhere between 900 and 1,050 net a month. Just to get an understanding of, if I'm comparing rent with buying, what am I looking at? Just a ballpark figure. I do the talking, I don't do the advice. These guys in the back and girls in the back, sorry Ilya, they do the advice. So if you have a question afterwards, we have a team of 35 colleagues that can help you out. We have colleagues here in Amsterdam, but we also have regional colleagues in Utrecht, in The Hague, or Rotterdam, or Eindhoven. So if you have a question afterwards, please do come to me or to come to one of my colleagues, and we would love to help you with a free of charge, independent first meeting. Thank you very much.